So as you start to think about this and you start to have this come together, and hopefully I've painted a mental or visual picture for you, the idea would be that every 5 years you would get a new battery for your car, which means that you would maintain the range of, you get the new technology. It's no different, guys, from when you go to AT&T or Verizon or whoever your cell phone provider is, and every 3 years you're getting a new cell phone as long as you maintain your monthly minutes, whether it be $50 a month or $80 a month. You're getting the new technology because they're charging you for the minutes. What I'm suggesting is we're charging you for mobility. And one of the reasons why I think the utility company needs to be involved is because my idea would be to bundle the mobility with the cost of electricity. So if you have Duke as your home service provider, Duke will get together and bundle for $150 a month all the minutes you can charge, as long as you charge them from midnight to 6 in the morning, right, off peak. And if you want to charge them on peak, it would be as if you took your cell phone and you were roaming, right? If you're in network, $0. If you're roaming, they charge you $12 a minute, right? We all figured that out pretty quick, right? You get your bill and you're like, $800, what happened? So the idea would be very, very similar to that model, where you end up with incentivization toward off-peak charging, balancing the load, to use utility terms. As you start to get into the past midnight witching hours, utilities sometimes go negative on their cost of electricity. They have too much capacity relative to the demand. And then, of course, as you know, 60% of our power plant fleet is turned off 18 hours a day. It's only there for peaker capacity. And most of that peaker plants can't be coal, which is cheap. It has to be something more like natural gas because it has to be much faster in terms of its response rates. One of the nice things about lithium-ion batteries is that it gives you blinkless transfer. It's instant on, instant off. So using it for energy storage for the grid is a very, very useful application for a lithium-ion battery because it gives you the ability to flex the network, and I mean the utility network, the generating network, in a very, very fast manner. So coming back to my model and concluding, and let's open the debate and open the floor for questions. If you see the Think car, and you've seen some pictures of it, and you can see the car up front, as we've done our marketing studies, okay, it's clear to me that if that car was $15,000 minus $7,500 federal tax credit, so $7,500 plus $150 a month for the car, I don't think it would be too crazy here to think that we could sell 20 or 30,000 of those a year. Okay, but if I started by saying that car, which is a purpose-built car specifically for commuting applications, that car costs you $35,000 net of a $7,500 federal tax credit, that's a little bit more of a stretch to write that check relative to a Prius, for example, which today gets 50 miles to the gallon. So those are the sorts of things we are wrestling with, and those are the sorts of things we are trying to solve. And as I said before, this is a marathon race and not a sprint, and we are in it for the long haul, and I believe we've only completed the first inning. So this is something where, each and every one of you who are in this field, who touch it some way, somehow, have to know that we are in this for the long term. This is going to be a very, very exciting 10 years for us. But the first year or two are going to be extremely choppy, as we're finding at Ener1, and you're probably finding in your own experiences, is that this is a very, very difficult phase in the cycle. But we are fully committed to finishing the job, and we think that finding that right secondary use model, and I mentioned before about tertiary use. Once we get done in the automobile, one of the nice things about the Ener1 product is it's modularized. The cell, which goes into a standard module, it's that same module we use in the ThinkPack that we're using today in our grid energy storage units for bulk energy storage that we're shipping off to Russia and other parts of the U.S. And we can break that automotive pack down, take that module, and reconfigure it any way the grid energy storage guys would need it. The third use applications would be like UPS or uninterruptible power supply. So, for example, today, most of the telecom towers are backed up by lead acid. Unfortunately, they're geographically diverse. There's thousands and thousands of towers in remote locations, and lead-acid batteries have a very poor cycling capability. So being able to take but yet they're only cycled once or twice a year, so being able to take a third use when you only have 30 or 40% state of charge in a lithium-ion battery, you could back that telephone tower up for another 5 years. So that's where I think economics meets politics. And we are at a crucial juncture where I do believe that mass deployment of electric cars is possible. But I think we have to get realistic about how to break down the costs of each of the different products and how to charge the consumer in an appropriate way. For our industry, it's happening much faster than it did for telecom. I remember very clearly as an investor how the '96 Telecom Act changed the way we thought about telecom. And many of you who were investors or involved in that space some way, somehow remember where we actually unbundled the regional Bell operating companies from the central office, so you could break down the bill and have competitive local exchange carriers that could compete with the regional Bell operating companies. And I proffer to you as a visionary statement that is the precise way that we're going to solve the cost problem for putting electric cars on the road. So I thank you for your time. I look forward to any manner and mean of questions, and enjoy your coffee and dessert.
Charles, thank you for those comments. And again, I have a few questions I'll start off with, but would encourage you to please, if you haven't done so already, jot down a couple of questions. I think we have some students who will pick up those note cards from you, and we can get those questions to Charles. Charles, you mentioned the state of Indiana. I'd be interested in your perspective on Indiana as a clean technology state. You mentioned Energy Systems Network and IEDC and universities. A lot of people are involved and supportive, certainly, of the industry. From your perspective, how does Indiana stack up compared to other states around the country when it comes to supporting, understanding clean technology?
Okay, thanks. I mean, it's always good to be in a home crowd, so saying nice things about Indiana is very easy for me. For those of you who are in the private sector, obviously you know Indiana is the best state in the United States to do business from both a cost structure perspective and from a tax perspective. One of the nice things about the clean tech industry is while it is an exciting industry, without any doubt, it is a business that still needs to find profitability. Very few of the companies, whether they be private or public in clean tech today, have yet to find the holy grail of getting to be a profitable company. And I think that is something that clearly we need more of a focus on. One of the things that I think we do pretty well at Ener1 is say, look, forget the SG&A, forget the overhead. If you start a plant, okay, and you're going to invest in a plant, I don't care if it's government funding with the grants or loans or state energy fund money. If you're going to build a plant, can you, within those four walls, make a profit? And one of the things I'm most proud of is perhaps that Ener1 has industry-leading gross margins versus all of our competitors, especially our four friends in Michigan. We generated positive gross margins for the last 2 years straight. We've got 24% gross margins in the last 2 quarters. All of our competitors, in particular a publicly traded one in Michigan that I won't mention, generated negative 86% gross margins last quarter. That gives you some idea, I think, of the types of ways that we think about business. Now, how does that fit with Indiana? I guess at the end of the day, Indiana is a state that believes that business is first and politics is second, and certainly our governor is the best example of that I found. And I think one of the things that's most important to me is that as you think about Indiana, clearly you saw from the Department of Energy that this state attracted a tremendous amount of government incentives, whether it be grants, whether it be loans, et cetera. And through innovative ideas, we've been able to deploy that money in ways that make economic sense, right? For example, let's again use some specific examples. The state of Michigan tempted us with $100 million of free money to move up to Michigan. With that came some labor rates that were unattractive, some taxes that were unattractive and going higher. And I think one of the things we have to do as we think about putting a plant that's going to be a 20-year long-lived plant is we have to think about what is the overall total impact and total cost of ownership of that plant over that period of time. And I guess to finish the dialogue, the state of Indiana encourages you to build an economic model to look for the long term and not for the short term.
And how, just a brief follow-up to that, Charles, in terms of how you view Indiana, as you look at continuing this critical phase in the electric vehicle industry, you've got a significant investment here with a plant in Mount Comfort in Hancock County, just east of here, and a couple of other locations. How does Indiana fit into Ener1's future plans?
Well, so we have a global footprint to meet our global customer needs. We have 3 plants here in Indiana. One in Indianapolis proper, one in Noblesville, and then our sizable plant in Mount Comfort that was made possible by the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. We also have a substantial plant in Korea, just outside of Seoul, and we have a joint venture with the largest Tier 1 automotive parts supplier in China, Wangsheng. So in total, if you add up our total square footage, we now have the ability to compete with any battery producer in the world, Sanyo, Samsung, LG. We have the square footage to be able to compete. I think the longer range answer to the question is you need to be able to build a plant to service your customer. Today, the growing part of our business is in grid energy storage. Today, that segment of the market appears to be growing in the emerging economies, Russia, China, India, Brazil, for sure. So as we think about delivering, whether it be a 600-pound battery pack for an automobile or a 40,000-pound grid energy storage system, you got to be able to have localization of production. So one of the crucial points, I guess I would argue, is that the more business we can generate here in the United States, the better it's going to be for our future plans. I think that's self-explanatory, but clearly we have, I think, invested in enough plant now to generate, we control our own destiny. We can generate cash flow positive if those plants are turned on and the meter's running. So we've successfully funded and completed our first phase from a vision standpoint. Now it's about execution.
Yeah, one more question before we start taking a few from the audience. You mentioned your joint venture partnership, which was announced, I think, last year. Yeah. Just talk a little bit about that and how substantial that is for Ener1 and the policy differences in China and what makes things attractive there.
So I think what's critical to understand is that as you think about reasons for electric cars, and the first reason that usually comes to mind is dependence on foreign oil. I think one of the things we all have to keep in mind is that we have a growing population of, call it 350 million plus or minus. That equals the middle class in China, total population of 1.4 billion. The DOE expects China will put 500 million cars on the road by 2030. The total automobiles on the road today is about 1 billion. So we're going to have at least a 50% increase in automotive vehicles on the road. This is just light duty, by the way. And that doesn't even include the turnover or population growth in other parts of the world that are growing. India would be a great example of where I'm not quite sure where that automotive market is going, but it's going to do something. They've got to worry about infrastructure and cost and other things there.